Welcome. This is Cooking with Cardboard. My name is Ben. You can find me over at Twitter, on Twitter, at cardboard_cooks.
And I'm Martin. You can find me on Twitter at golem_MTG. And this week we are going to dive into Mom.
Yes.
Wow, that sounded bad.
Not diving into your mom.
We're going to dive into March of the Machines. Or machine. Is it machines or machine?
March of the
it's just
Machine.
Singular.
I feel like it should be plural, though, if you were going on like traditional English grammar, right? March of the Machine. But it's multiple machines, right? That's odd. That's odd.
So all will be one.
Oh.
What is the one? It is a machine.
That's fair.
Right? So this March of the Machine is right. There's also a card, March of the Machines, from original Mirrodin that turns all artifacts into creatures with power and toughness equal to their converted mana cost.
Titania song.
So maybe they
Let's
don't want
go.
to I don't know.
That's fair.
But anyway, so today we're going to be talking a little bit about that, about pre-release that's going to come up in a few weeks. We're going to talk about some sweet new commanders. We're going to, in fact, have a build-off challenge this episode where me and Ben build some decks and we talk about how we would win with them and what are some key cards for those strategy using some of the sweet new cards in Mom.
Yes, some really exciting team-ups that I think a lot of people are excited about and just some bangers that are coming out in that set. I know there's a lot of hype for this set as well as Lord of the Rings sets coming up. I think those are the two that are coming out this year that people are just going to lose their mind on and spend way too much physical money in the real world on.
Yeah, so the thing about Lord of the Rings, which I think is not really applied to any of the other IPs they've done Universes Beyond with, is that the people who love Lord of the Rings are usually the same kinds of people that like things like Magic. Mm-hmm. So there's a good chance that people out there who hadn't gotten into Magic will get into Magic because they can now play a Lord of the Rings deck.
Oh, yeah.
So, and when they go in, they'll go ham because this is the age group of people that, they're in their 40s, 50s. They're way older than me. Like, I'm
leaps
young.
and bounds. Yeah.
Leaps
Decades.
and bounds, right? But they have more money. It's just they're not like the Fortnite crowd who don't really have the money to be blowing it on expensive cardboard.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to go gangbusters.
100%. Like you said, I think
I'm looking forward.
It's a good lure. They're throwing out a really good fishing pole net of we're going to capture this fan base and bring them into Magic. It's
right, and it's also good IP in the sense that nothing in it are going to be huge flavor fails for Magic as a whole.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's got goblins, it's got orcs, it's got elves, it's got halfling. I mean, these are things that we've seen in Magic before, so it's not going to be, breaking new ground. Magical rings and stuff, wizards.
That Venn diagram, that middle section is not going to be too small. You're always worried about that when it comes to when they go to crossover or like Transformers. People are very scared about that, I think, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, It's interesting. So one of the people I know that's really big into Lord of the Rings is Stephen Colbert on The Late Show.
His Lord of the Rings sessions kill me.
Into Lord
yes.
So I'm hoping he'll start playing Magic because he loves Lord of the Rings, because then he could maybe start spreading more awareness of Magic, and then we could get more crowd. I don't know.
I'm gonna hit him up on Twitter when I get off of here. I'm hitting him up. I'm gonna let him know in case he doesn't know.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, for sure. So before we dive into the decks that we want to build and what we're excited about coming out of March of the Machine, let's talk a little bit about what March of the Machine is, what some of the new cards are, what we're excited about, what the pre-release is going to look like. It's going to look a little different than a normal pre-release, not by a lot, but by a little. So let's dive into that. Okay. Any new cards you're excited about other than the ones that we're going to be spotlighting?
I'm trying to think. I guess all the team-up cards I feel like are really, really exciting. I feel like...
What's a team-up card?
Oh, I mean, that's a great question, Martin. So this set has a couple traditionally very popular commander legendary creatures that are going to be teaming up with other legendary creatures on one card, and will have abilities that are somewhat related but not the same. It's kind of a hybrid of the two characters' abilities on that card. Whether it's a very strong ability is yet to be seen on some of them, but I think they're going to be cards that are going to be very popular within the commander fan base. So I don't know. Are there any particular ones that you're excited for?
It's the one where the Gitrog and the Thalia had a baby. The Gitrog Thalia baby. That one's pretty dope.
Yeah, I think the Galta one's pretty cool too.
Yeah, it's the buy a box promo. I mean, no, the bundle promo. Yeah. That
Oh yeah.
Well, let's just mention them since we brought them up here.
Oh yeah.
So Gitrog, Thalia and the Gitrog monster is one generic, a white, a black, and a green. So Abzan +1, 4 mana for a 4/4 legendary human frog horror with first strike and death touch, which is a very powerful combination.
Yeah.
It says you can play an additional land on each of your turns, which is also a very powerful ability. It says creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Everybody loves stacks. And then whenever Thalia and the Gitrog monster attacks, you have to sacrifice a creature or land, but then you get to draw a card. So this card is doing some stuff that's traditionally associated with the Gitrog, some of the stuff that's associated with Thalia, and I really think this one is going to be a very powerful commander card. Probably will see some play in Standard as well, but you could see this playing in a lands deck. You could see this playing in a Aristocrats deck, because that attack, sacrificing a creature and drawing a card is pretty potent. It wants to attack with first strike and death touch. It's just pretty good.
Well, I feel like it's pretty good, but it also like it gets around a lot of the fear that is associated with the Gitrog monster, with like kind of the more competitive, sweaty side. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Does
it's
this
not as combo-y as
Yeah, it's not going to have the deck more salvage loops, and you're not going to be going off with like crazy long turns if you don't try to, which I think is really good. Like it's a card that you read on the face value, like, oh, it's a good card, but it's not like innately broken.
Right, yeah. Well, I think this is going to be stronger than it looks on first blush.
Yeah.
I remember when I first saw this, I was like, meh. I'm not really excited about any one of these things, but you put them all together, and I think this is way better than it looks. All you need with this guy is a way to play lands from your graveyard, and you can kind of go ham, right? You can attack, sack a land, get to play it back from the graveyard, play an additional land from your hand. I just think that you're going to end up getting pretty far ahead pretty quick the longest this stays on the battlefield, all the while doing commander damage to people, which...
Yeah. Like, I mean, playing your lands from the graveyard is a very powerful effect by itself. Like, that's nothing. And then the first strike death touch is, like you said, that's something that a lot of people don't understand how it works on face value, so it's kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah, you got to block this with 5 creatures to have a hope of killing it.
Yeah.
So most likely not blocking it most of the time. And then the Galta and Mavrin is the other one. That's the bundle promo. It's double white, double green, and 3 colorless for a dinosaur vampire.
Best kind of dinosaur.
Got trample, and it's a 12/12. So 7 mana 12/12. It's actually a pretty decent price. It's not as cheap as traditional Galta can get, but let's see what else it does. It says whenever you attack, doesn't have to attack with this creature. Any creature attacks.
Whenever you attack.
Yeah. You get a choice. Tapped an attacking XX green dinosaur with trample, where X is the greatest power among attacking creatures other than Galta and Mavrin. Or X 1/1 white vampire tokens with lifelink, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. So it's either pooping out a giant dude, or it's going to make a bunch of 1/1 life-linking tokens, kind of similar to the Rabble Rousing that just got printed, which would probably be good.
Yeah, I feel like it leans towards that big stompy feel where it's just going to... It's a big turn 7 play where you're going to get a lot of value out of it. And the art on it is like very... I know we just said it, but it reminds me of Lord of the Rings, where somebody's literally riding an animal into battle.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, it is pretty sweet. I'm a little worried about this guy not being that great just because 7 mana is a lot. He'll probably be a fun commander, but don't know how strong he'll be. I do have to say that it's whenever you attack is pretty strong. So I think that will be decent, especially if you could see this guy being the commander of a swarm deck, more so than a stompy deck. But, you could do it either way.
That's fair. Yeah, I think that the team-ups, it's kind of cool how most of them, you can play the individual card in that. Like if you're running the team-up card as the commander, both of the original cards fit fairly well in the 99 somewhere.
Right, yeah.
They did a good job with that.
And the Gitrog monster being like a stacks commander with land matters, with the Gitrog and with the Thalias and things like that.
Yeah.
And Galta could be either, a vampire token strategy like Mavrin was, or Galta's like a big stompy. Um, Either way, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But there's a few others. There's Drana and Limvala, which is probably a strong one. There's the meme of Gargle and Moltani,
Oh gosh.
which is one of the first vanilla creatures in a while. It's 3 mana, black, black, and a green for an 18/6 Frog Spirit Elemental.
Yes, a lot of people are going to be
And-
gaining 18 lives from that Path of Exile.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not a
Yeah.
great card, but it's funny and it's neat. But it's cool that we're going to have a whole bunch of these cycles of different ones, and I think they're all from the same plane. So, like, Gitrog and Thalia are both from Innistrad, Galta and Mavrin are both from Ixalan, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really excited to see what other ones come up, and in fact, we have a few commander ones that we're going to be talking about in a minute that are also team ups like these, but a little bit more powerful because they're not going to be in standard.
Yes, absolutely.
So, do you know about the dedicated slot in the Mom packs?
No, so what happens when I open my pre-release kit this time? If I go to a March of the Machines pre-release,
Right. So you're going to get 6 packs.
normal. I'm used to
2
that.
promos.
What? 2 promos?
2 promos. But let's get into the packs first. So,
Okay.
do you remember Brothers War or Strixhaven? The
Yes.
Mystical Archives or the Artifacts?
I do like those.
This is going to have a legendary slot. So
Oh.
there, it's going to be its own dedicated slot. You can get a rare, a mythic, common or uncommon. Maybe not common. I don't know. But anyway, you can get any of the different rarities for it. And they're going to be from the history of Magic. They're going to represent all of the multiverse teaming up to try and stop Phyrexia's invasion. Because the whole point of this set is that Elish Norn has taken over the Great Tree,
The World Tree.
the World Tree.
Yeah.
The World Tree from Kaldheim, and is using that being Phyrexianized to be able to reach out into the multiverse and invade other planes. So all of these legends are coming out of the woodwork to team up together to fight off the Phyrexians. One of the key notes being printed in this set is Ragavan, which is like a $70-$80 card. And this one's actually going to have a treatment, the specialty treatment from the sets they came from. Ragavan, for example, is going to be have a specialty treatment that is like the
special artifacts. What are they called? Oh.
They're from
Something S. I don't know.
yeah, but they were the secret ones in the Ixalan set, right? No,
I
was it
just know they're
Ixalan?
super expensive.
Yeah, but it's really pretty cards, and they're going to be really nice looking. And if you get the foils, it's probably going to be worth a lot of money. But they're all really cool. I like that each card has a different specialty frame based on the world they come from. And I just think this is going to be another home run set that is so fun to open. Mom was super fun to open. Brothers War was super fun to open. And then going back, Strixhaven was super fun to open because of these specialty cards. And this one's just going to be another home run. But yeah. So anyway, the 2 promos.
2 promos. I'm not used
So
to this.
Yeah, I think if you can go to pre-releases for this, you go to as many as you can.
Yeah.
Because this is the only way to get some of these Commander promos. And I have a feeling that in a couple of years, unless they reprint them somewhere else, these things are going to end up being very expensive. If you look at the foil promos for set cards normally, tend to get a little more expensive than even the foil counterparts in the main cards. Now just imagine if the main cards don't exist.
Yeah.
These are the only way you can get these cards. I have a feeling they'll all be worth pretty good money, especially the ones that are really fun, and they all look really fun so far.
Yeah, I think they're going to be popular as commanders in general, especially off the bat. I mean,
It depends on how many they're going to make. Right now, there's 3 that have been spoiled. If only those 3 are printed, then they may not get too crazy price-wise. But if there's like 10 or 20 of these things, you're going to see these cards get pretty crazy expensive because there's just not going to be a lot of supply.
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Also, it was Kaladesh Inventions for that printing.
Yes, Kaladesh
That's what it
Inventions.
was. Yes.
You are right.
I looked it up. I didn't know off the top of my head. I just know that they're super expensive because they have that like orange border thing, and then you see it on.
Yeah, well, those. So that was back before. Like, this is different than the Mystical Archives type thing. This is a card that would the Kaladesh Inventions would randomly show up in a pack, in addition to your normal rare, and it was like, you know, you might get one every couple boxes.
Okay.
Not
usually on artifacts, right?
They were all artifacts in the original print. So the
all
first
of them.
time
Okay.
we did this was Kaladesh. They were all artifacts in that slot that rarely came up. I think the next time they did it was the original Zendikar, or one of the Zendikars, where it was a land, like the fetches and stuff. They did it again for Battle for Zendikar, but they did it where it'd show up more often because of like collector's packs. Because back in Kaladesh, there were no collector's packs. So these cards were like chase cards and traditional draft packs, which made drafting more fun. You could open up some really cool art, some very high value cards. And because of that rarity, they have proven to be some of the most valuable versions of the cards that you could have gotten. I don't like them, but you could. Oh, Amonkhet.
You don't
also
like them?
Invocation. No, I don't like them.
You don't like the way they look?
I don't like. I mean, they're fine, but I don't know. I just like the weird. It just doesn't do anything for me.
The squiggly bits on the side, they'll do it for you. Okay.
Don't do it for me.
I'll let Watsy know next time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's all about me. So anyway, there's a bunch of other new cards spoiled. So the promos. The promo you'll get one of your normal promos, which is one foil rare mythic from the set, traditional foil, and then you get one of these commander foils. Commander mythics. The three that are currently spoiled are, the first one is Slimefoot and Squee. So this is a combo of Squee and Slimefoot. It costs Jund mana, a black, a red, and a green for a 3/3. So 3 mana, 3/3, just like my boy Henzi. Legendary creature Fungus Goblin. Whenever Slimefoot and Squee enters the battlefield or attacks, you create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. And then for a red, a green, a black, and a colorless, you can sacrifice a Saproling and return Slimefoot and Squee and up to one other target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. But you can only activate it as a sorcery. So this is the first example of one of these pre-release mythic legendaries. It's also the team-ups. In this case, I guess this is from Dominaria. What do you think of this card?
I mean, it seems okay. It reminds me of that other Tree Folk legendary that you can sacrifice a sapling and draw a card, and it like shuts off graveyards or something. It seems very like, eh. If I was a big, like, I know there's like a whole cult following behind like Squee's lore, and like people really like him in general, but I'm not a huge Squee fan, so I'm like, the card seems okay to me.
Yeah. So I like this card a lot more than a lot of people probably would. I do like Jund quite a bit. It is one of my favorite non-blue combinations. But the thing I think that is deceptively powerful here is that this thing is going to be pooping out Saproling tokens on its own. So it's creating its own food for its secondary ability. You can then sacrifice this to a myriad of, sac effects in like an Aristocrat's Jund build. And then you can use the red mana to help get things into the graveyard. So you could use stuff like Faithless Looting or other like looting effects.
Your draw and discard, classic.
Yeah, and then you can get back Giant Idiots for 4 mana, which could be on your commander, right? So this is, I think this is going to be, I think, a lot like a Henzi style, where it can do powerful things, but it's going to be fundamentally fair.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
Fair. Absolutely.
So I like it a lot. I think this was very beautifully designed. It's not busted. It's good, but it's fun. It does its own thing. It really captures, getting it back from the graveyard, similar to Squee's ability, which is he always comes back from the dead. And then the Slimefoot makes tokens. Kind of wish there was a life gain thing in there somewhere for Saprolings dying, but yeah, you can't have everything.
Yeah, they can't put a whole paragraph on the card. I feel like a lot of these team up
they
cards.
Put 2 paragraphs on this card. What are you talking about?
They have a lot of text on a lot of the team up cards because they all do multiple things besides the vanilla one, obviously. But
all right, so why don't you tell me about the card that you've built around today?
yes, so the team up that I have selected to put a deck together for was for the team up of Goru and Satoru. So they are a legendary. See, it seems weird saying they're a legendary creature solo, but they're a legendary creature, Goblin Human, for Grixis. One blue, black, and red. Whenever one or more creatures you control that enter the battlefield this turn deal combat damage to a player, create a 5/5 red dragon spirit creature token with flying. And it also has, for 1 and a red, you can give creatures you control flying until end of turn.
Nope. Haste.
Haste. I am tripping. Never mind. Haste. Flying will not be nearly as good as the dragons already have flying. But notable call out, not a ninja, right? Both of them are originally ninjas, so you'd think maybe they would give... or I guess, no, Goru is not a ninja, because then he would be the first red ninja. He's a goblin something or another. But on the card, it would be kind of sweet if they were... I guess it would be too many card types. If it was a goblin human ninja, that might be too much. But notably no ninjas in red, so...
I don't know. That's just not the longest type line I've ever seen. You could have added 5 more letters. I mean, they have some pretty long type lines these days.
That's fair. Yeah. But the way I see this card, there's kind of 3 ways to go about it. You're either capitalizing on the fact that you're going to make dragons. You're going to capitalize on the fact that you're making... you're able to give your creatures haste, so you're having a haste enabler on a body. Or you're going to capitalize on that combat damage as a whole, right? So that's kind of the direction I went, was adding in cards that are going to have effects on combat damage, as well as leaning into the more ninja style tribal with a lot of my selections. But it's a really fun deck that I think is going to be really popular, because if you look, Satoru Umezawa's the number 2 ninja commander, right behind what's her name, the Commander Ninjutsu lady,
Naruto.
Yes, right behind that. So I mean, it's going to be definitely a popular card. I think the people that run those Umezawa decks already are gonna at least consider building this, because it is really cool.
So the original Satoru it's the 1 colorless for blue and black legendary human ninja. I think it's a 2/4, and then it basically gives all creatures in your hand ninjutsu of 2 blue and a black. So people use that to ninjutsu in like blight steals and other shenanigans. Or they do ETB flickers where they ninjutsu a few times of 1 creature. Sometimes those ninjas are like the Peregrine Drake, so you can untap lands. It's a pretty powerful, potent strategy. And then Goru is a red and a colorless for a 2/2 legendary goblin, I believe. And it is gives 1 red to give all your creatures haste.
Yeah.
And then 3 and red to create a 5/5 dragon spirit token with flying, but only can activate it if you are attacking with a modified creature. Modified being equipment, auras, and counters. So Goru has a better haste enabler than the combo card. Right?
Better than the combo card? Better than Perforos?
No. Goru and Satoru's haste enabling is worse than the original Goru. It's 2 mana.
Yeah.
So that's not as great. But
no, it's definitely a balanced card. I don't think it's going to be like we have to remove that on the spot kind of commander.
Yeah, I agree. It's not as scary as like the original Satoru, where any creature gets through could suddenly turn into a Blightsteel and you could just be dead.
Yeah.
So likely won't be a kill on sight commander. But I like adding the red. Seems pretty cool. So what kind of cards did you include in this list?
So speaking of red, some of the cards that I wanted to capitalize on within red was some extra combat steps, as a lot of the cards in the deck were built around triggers on combat damage. So even Goru, like making that 5/5 if you connect, you get to do that again and make 2 5/5s if you hit twice, which is not nothing, right? Building 10 power is pretty freaking good. 2 notable callouts from recent sets. We have Hexblade Wallbreaker. It is for 3 colorless and 2 reds and artifact equipment. from the most recent set from Phyrexia OB1 artifact equipment. It has the best ability for Mirrodin with an exclamation mark. So it comes in, makes it 2/2, just like the Germs, but it's a red rebel creature token. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, and whenever equipped creature attacks, if it's the first combat phase of the turn, untap each attacking creature. And after this phase, there's an additional combat phase, and it costs 3 colorless and a red to equip. So, putting this on some unblockable, if the token gets removed, or just on the Germ by itself, you're going to have, even with Gorgur, without Gorgur, you have additional haste enablers in the deck, so you're most likely going to be swinging with it the turn you play it, so it turns into a 5 mana extra combat, which is pretty good. The other call was from the Warhammer 40k decks. You have a pretty popular one, Bloodthirster, a little more expensive, right? The
the Hex 6/6 flyer.
Yeah, the Hexblade's only $1, but this guy's coming in at 10 and not 9.30 right now on TCG Player, it looks like. But he's
good.
A 5 colorless and a red demon 6/6 flying trample. And whenever he deals combat damage to a player, untap it. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase. With the restriction that it can't attack a player, it's already attacked this turn. So with him, you do have the ceiling of making 3 5/5s right on the turn he's attacking, which is kind of nutty. Like, that's a lot of damage.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good.
So a lot of the ninjas require you to not be blocked.
Yes.
But this card just says whenever it deals combat damage.
Yes.
Which is better. So big tramplers or death touch tramplers are likely going to get you a dragon token. So you may want to have some ways to give trampling, right?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of the cards that I selected. I'll give you another call out here that have trample, right? So the best card that I selected for the deck, or it's kind of a pet card, but it's just also a really good card that plays on the trample effect, is Elturial Survivors. It's a tiefling peasant for 3 colorless and a red, 0/4, but it has trample and myriad. So we'll dive into why the myriad's important in a sec, but it has, as long as it's attacking, it gets +X/+O, where X is the number of lands defending player controls. So late game, that could be anywhere 7, 10, 11. How hard did the green player ramp? It has trample, so when it connects, you're going to make the 5/5, and the myriad tokens entered this turn. So
yeah,
it's definitely one that I think is going to be, if you play it right, if you don't just throw it down on turn 4, you play it right, I think it could be really good, especially with, like I said, haste enablers, and it has trample, so like you said, it's going to get through no matter what, right?
Yeah, I like that a lot, and it's the language on Satoro, Gorogoro and Satoro, says whenever one or more creatures you control that entered the battlefield do combat damage to a player. So my reading is that will trigger for each player.
Yeah.
So you would get potentially 3 dragons.
Yeah, you can't get more than that. That's the max. But I mean, that's 15 power. I mean, and they're not like tapped. Yeah, they're not tapped or anything. Like,
wow,
pretty cool. But I mean, if you want to go a little more sweaty, you could go, because you are in blue. You could go extra turns. I didn't decide to go down that route because it's a little sweatier and maybe frowned upon slightly in casual, more than extra combats. Because it does take a little more time to resolve those spells typically, but that definitely is an option.
I could see extra turns probably being okay, but I like extra combats because they tend to be cheaper too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely feel like you would at least include the first. Was it Relentless Assault?
Yeah.
Red and 2 colorless, and you pay double red and 2 colorless. I mean, you could get really sweaty with this and include ways to go infinite, right? Where you get infinite combats.
Oh yeah. I mean,
which could be good. I don't know if this is the color that would be best suited for it, right? Because I think a lot of the infinite ones. Yeah, I think a lot of them deal with green to get the extra mana each turn, but like
Nagila using all 5 maybe. But... Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
Um,
difficult.
but red does have a lot of treasure generation.
Yeah.
So there is definitely a world where you can make, 4 treasures each combat, which then nets you enough mana to use the Relentless Assault, possibly.
Yeah, yeah. There's some nutty stuff you can do, like you said already, with Peregrine Drake and the other dragon that is on tap and
Mhm.
lands too with your ninjutsu effects. So there's
Right.
definitely ways to
Right.
go about it. But
Yeah, it could be a combo commander potentially.
yeah, yeah. It's also
Probably better options for that,
yeah,
but it seems good.
yeah. I think it's like it's one of those combo commanders too, where it's not like inherently like when you play Umezawa, the first question out of your mouth is, "Are you playing Blightsteel? Like, are you have a Blightsteel in the deck?" It's not like
Mhm.
a commander that's going to be warranting a lot of like questions around combos, which is good. And I think that's the way I built it, was like kind of staying towards the more focusing on the combat damage step, which is a little more fun.
Yeah.
But you still need interaction. So some interaction that I did want to call out here for the deck. First up, we have Ninja's Kunai, right? Staying on theme with a little the weapon choice from Ninjas. It's an artifact equipment for 1 colorless, and it has equipped creature has pay 1, tap it, sacrifice it, and it deals 3 damage to any target, and it has an equip cost of 1. So you're generally going to have haste on your creatures by the time you're using this as removal, hopefully. But if you get it down early, it can kind of represent a threat that would steer people away from attacking you if you play it politically. So it saves you some life, and then ultimately it's a 3 mana investment where you're taking out a creature. Maybe that's generating some value, or just pointing it at somebody's face at the floor, and it fits that ninja theme that I kind of went for the deck.
Yeah, I feel like ninjas are really good in this deck.
Yeah.
Because the battlefield as their ninjutsu, so when they do damage, they're going to get you the dragon.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Are you going to include a bunch of ways to make sure you can connect?
Yeah. So
for your ninja,
the biggest thing there was I had 34 ninjas in the deck, right? 29 of them have ninjutsu. So you're playing a lot of those effects, and just like in those traditional style decks, you're playing upwards of 15 creatures that have, or not 50, you have like 10 to 15. I have 12 in mind, but you could play as many as you want with just some sort of evasiveness, whether it's full unblockability or just flying, can't be blocked by XYZ. There's a lot of ways to build that up where you play that on turn 1 or 2 traditionally. You play either a ninjutsu for 2, or you're playing your commander on 3, ninjutsuing on the following turn. I mean, there's different ways to go there, but yeah, I think it's a lot of fun kind of ninjutsu deck.
yeah, it seems like it would be a fun deck, and it's like you're not Yuriko, which is like kind of sweaty, and then you're not Umezawa, which can also be scary. I mean, you can play it less sweaty, right?
Yeah.
And you just kind of try and disclose that as part of Rule 0, so nobody like tries to hate you out.
Absolutely.
But it's definitely a very scary deck to play against.
Yeah.
So this might be a middle of the road.
Yeah, I think hopefully they've kind of struck a good balance with the ninjas. I think there's definitely there's like a goblin dragon build to go here too, but I kind of went with more the ninjas.
Goblin dragon,
right?
Do tell.
Because I feel like the Goru is kind of encouraging the style of play, almost like Krinko, where if you make a bunch of goblins, it doesn't matter how many blockers you have. One of them is going to hit. You're going to make the 5/5, and then a lot of dragons, traditionally. Maybe, I think Terror of the Peak, something where you're capitalizing on making that 5/5 dragon every time, or I don't know.
Yeah, so like I could see something like the like even just a token producer type thing you're talking about, right? Like just poop out some tokens and get in, you're going to hit somebody. There's also the blue guy, blue and a colorless for a 1/3. He's also, I think, an Umezawa. Did you find this guy? He's all creatures with power 1 or less can't be blocked.
Yeah, the guy with the purple sword looking thing. Yeah,
I just know what they do in the mana cost.
That's fair.
I'm bad at art.
Arguably more important than what they look
really
like.
Really good in the token build. Right?
Yeah. No, I was looking through EDH Rec, and he was definitely up there because he's another one that's like very popular in ninjutsu style decks because he gives you that ability with any 1/1, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, makes himself unblockable, which, 2 mana for your guys, not great, but, you really want a lot of 1-drops that do that. Like,
Yeah.
Changeling Outcast is like the
standard
ultimate kind of one of those. But I have a second. One. It should be right after Changeling Outcast, especially for this deck.
Is it a changeling?
It's a Gingerbrute.
Gingerbrute's so good. Yes.
It's got haste. Can't be blocked except for by creatures with haste.
Yes.
So this guy is he's checking all the boxes, right? So you could see a world where, I don't have a ninjutsu guy, but this guy's going to make me a 5/5 every turn, right? At least that first turn.
Yeah.
Guarantee your first one. But, yeah, you might want ways to pick up your dudes.
Oh, yeah, like the Grythalical Scholar guy, the octopus-looking guy. If your creature's blocked, you get to pick him up.
That guy would be good. Yeah.
I almost put him in there. I was literally just like thinking though, is like I had so many freaking creatures that I wanted to put in here. I was like, I don't know. I struggled to put a lot of enchantments or equipment that weren't like the extra combat. I don't know. I can jump into some of the removal pieces too. I included.
Yeah, cool. Do tell.
Besides the kunai, because I had 2 other callouts that were kind of ninja focused that I really like in the deck. They're not, you tell me if you think they're good cards though, because I know one of them is subpar, so we'll start with that one. It is Murderous Cut, 4 colors in a black. It has Delve, so you can get rid of cards in your graveyard and it reduces the casting cost. And it just says destroy target creature at instant speed. Do you think that's a terrible card, Martin? I've never seen this card until I looked it up for this deck.
Really?
Yeah.
I've got a pile of them, I'll give you.
Are they? Oh, okay. Were they pretty popular back in the day?
Well, it was really good at one point. When it was first printed, there was a lot of talk of it being the best removal of all time. Didn't end up being the best removal, but it definitely was played. The problem with it is that a lot of the decks that are able to fill the graveyard want to use their Delve for other things.
Yeah, or they want to like recur the cards. They don't want to get rid of them, right?
Right. Yeah. So there's a little bit of give and take. So I really feel like that card is not the best. I think that if you want something similar that works similarly, you play the instant exile.
Oh,
the overwhelming remorse.
Yes,
we talked about that one before.
That's the one you called out, and I picked up my copy because you convinced me it was so good.
Yeah. So if you're playing a deck that can get creatures in the graveyard, like the problem with this deck is if you build it the token way, you're not getting creatures in the graveyard.
Yeah.
And you're probably not playing any self-mill, so that might not be the best. In that case, I'd probably want to lean towards more traditional spot removal. Infernal Grasp, what's the other black one?
Feed the Swarm was another popular one on there. That's, a cracked card.
I include that as it's just really it's an enchantment removal that occasionally makes you.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the one that I like a lot is Baleful Mastery. So it's 4 mana, exile target creature. But it's you can play it for 2 mana instead, and then you make an opponent draw a card.
Oh, nice.
So I think it's pretty good in this because you can be like, hey guys,
political.
I'm going to do something. I'm going to take care of this guy. I'm going to let you draw a card, but I want you to do X, Y, and Z.
Well, especially if it's like you need somebody to not block. That's a really good way to get somebody to not block and take 2 or take 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that one would be good. And of course, if your budget is not a concern, I still think Deadly Rollick has got to be one of the best removal spells.
Yeah.
It's like $40. So
a little more expensive.
Not for anybody. Not for everybody, I mean.
Yeah. It does have like a picture of like it doesn't look quite like a ninja, but it's like kind of like an assassin lady. So I was like, that's kind of on theme. I could kind of spin it. My other 2 big ones were Doomblade because it's a blade, so it's kind of like ninja going in the air for the Doomblade. Classic removal, just good removal. And then I had Massacre Girl. Massacre Girl is kind of a weird one. Not a ninja. She's actually an assassin, human assassin.
Mm-hmm. She's got Menace.
She does have Menace, so it feeds into the unblockability where it doesn't have I'm unblockable, but it has some sort of evasiveness, which is always good if you're trying to get the ninjutsu abilities to go off. But do you consider Massacre Girl as like how high up do you consider her on like a border wipe scale? Like, if you're checking a box, is she just interaction or is she actually a board wipe?
It depends.
Yeah.
So
I had written down here. I was like, you have 4 and you have 5. So if you're trying to go up, because you have your commander and then maybe a 5/5 dragon, so it's like, I don't know. You have to get there first.
There's a couple reasons why I don't like this one in your deck.
Yeah.
Right. You got a lot of small creatures.
Definitely. Yeah.
And you want them to be stuck around. And once you kill those, then you're going to kill your commander. So you'll be stuck with just this. I feel like if you're going to do a Wrath, you could just pick something more consistent.
Yeah.
You know, like obviously you'll do the red one.
Blasphemous
13
Act.
damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously you'll run that one in this deck. And if you have the money, Toxic Deluge, of course, would be number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, you know, you could even do something like Evacuation, which bounces all creatures to people's hands.
Yeah.
Which might do some stuff that you like anyway, but you could also do the one that does tokens or creatures, like tokens or non-token creatures. So maybe you bounce all non-tokens and you get to keep your dragons, and then you beat face.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's some different ways you could do it where it's more tuned for this deck's play style than Massacre Girl.
That's fair.
I do like the Menace, but
yeah, it was more for like the kind of like, I don't know. She's not a ninja, but she's kind of a ninja, an assassin. I counted it.
Well, the thing I like about her isn't that she's got menace as much as you can pick her back up to reuse her.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the thing that makes me think about it.
Very, very potentially dangerous or potentially stalling if you need to.
Yeah, but you don't like. So you don't. I wouldn't want to count it as a ninjutsu enabler because it's gonna kill everything else when it comes into play.
Yeah,
so you can't really count it as ninjutsu. You'd have to count it as a Wrath.
That's fair.
In your deck building
when you build it. Yeah.
So, do you know the card Equilibrium?
I do not. What does Equilibrium do?
One of my favorite cards, blue, and a colorless. It's an enchantment. Whenever you play a creature spell, you may pay 1. If you do, return target creature to its owner's hand.
Ooh.
So it doesn't work with ninjutsu.
Okay.
However, I do like this card in your deck. It allows you to play some of your creatures from your hand, like you could hardcast a ninjutsu or a ninja creature, and you could either bounce an opponent's blocker, or you can pick up your guys that you're trying to give haste to make another dragon. I'm just thinking that you would probably want some kind of bounce effect.
Well, especially like for ones that I'm just trying to think of, like the ones like the extra comic guys I'd called out. They're not going to make the 5/5 if they stick around for a turn, so you want them back in your hand so you can play them again. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like you want a way to be able to flicker your dude so that you can get that hasty style attack. Like Ginger Brute is amazing. Eventually, it could maybe ninjutsu, but I could see a point where you just want another 5/5 dragon. So if you can bounce that to your hand, then you can re-attack with it with haste and then get a 5/5 dragon.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe it's better if you did something like Erratic Portal or Crystal Shard. Crystal Shard's a 3-mana artifact. You can tap it and pay a blue. Return target creature unless its owner pays 1. Or you could pay 3 and tap it to do the same, which obviously you're going to pay the blue here.
Yeah.
An Erratic Portal is the same thing, but it's a 4-mana artifact, and you just tap it for 1 to do the same effect. You obviously get to just, for 1 mana, bounce one of your creatures to your hand. And occasionally it'd be a corner case where somebody taps down and you're able to bounce one of their creatures to their hand because they don't have the...
Yeah, that seems pretty good. I've never seen either of those cards. Pretty good.
I'm not saying like that's you want to have like 3 or 4 of those effects in your deck. I'm thinking like 1, maybe 2. But I think it's nice to be able to have that engine piece.
Oh, definitely. I did have 2 Planeswalkers I wanted to give a shout out to. They're one of them is from the Phyrexian OB1 and the other's from Kamigawa. So I'll just
Kaido and Kaido.
Yeah, both the Kaidos I think would fit really well in the deck. I won't go through reading them for people that don't know how you look them up though, because they're really powerful Planeswalkers that fit on the ninja themes that I think can do a lot of fun interactions with cards that a lot of Planeswalkers like. They're not do anything that's like too broken. And then I had a funny include that I wanted to call out too. It's a card that again I have not seen. I don't have a ninja deck, so I feel like I've never been like, oh, what weird ninja cards can I look up? This one is Contract Killing. It is from Ixalan, and it is 3 colorless and 2 black pips, so pretty expensive for a sorcery interaction spell to destroy target creature and create 2 colorless, two treasures. Basically, it defines the treasures, but it's kind of cool because it's like it leans again more into the assassin ninjas, where it's like, okay, you have a board full of ninjas that are like on a mission, and then you get 2 treasures. Kind of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It does sound kind of... I like flavor. It's also like in today's age, it's so easy to have all these overpowered cards in your deck, and I think flavor is one of the best reasons to not include all those cards.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Bring on more. But yeah, so one of the cards, though, I was looking at the EDH rec, and there's a couple cards in here that seem really good. I really like Urabrask's Forge.
Oh yeah, making the small tokens every combat. Yeah.
Well, they get pretty big pretty fast.
Yeah.
Right? But they have haste. So they enter the battlefield, they do damage. You have to sacrifice them at the next end step. But at that point, they've already either done the damage or ninjutsu'd something. Mm-hmm. And nobody's going to want to block these things, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be like, well, I'll let that 3-1 or 4-1 through instead of trying to trade it with one of my guys. And then you get a free ninjutsu in, or you get a free dragon. I think that card is got to be at its best in a deck like this.
Yeah. I think that was like one of the top ones for that.
It is. For new cards, it is. Yeah, it's like I pulled it up and I saw that, and I was just like, wow, that's pretty good. And Lightning Greaves or the other boots is nice because they have they give creatures haste.
Yeah,
so
redundant haste effect is always good.
Yeah, which it's like especially good in this deck. I really like the building space in this deck. It seems pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a fun deck. I think it's like I said. I think a lot of these team ups I read and I was like, ooh, it's a fun avenue. You can go a few different directions, but they're also not like crazy overpowered. You know.
Yeah, I think at least these 3 that they've already spoiled are all home runs. Strong, but not too strong, but also creativity and deck building, like kind of unique stuff. A lot of these decks, you're like, oh yeah, this one's a token card, or this one's a go wide, or this one's a Voltron, or these.
It's a grilled cheese,
kind of strategy.
Yeah. It's speaking of good deck building, Martin, what commander did you decide to build around?
Well, let me be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
The one I went with not my first choice.
You lied.
My first choice.
You lied to me.
I did. I originally told you I was going to do Omnath, Locus of All, which is the buy a box promo, and in the core set, it's in the not the core set, the main set of March of the Machine. It's a red, green, blue, white, and Phyrexian black for a 4/4 legendary Phyrexian elemental. So the casting cost includes a Phyrexian black mana, which means you can either pay a black mana or pay...
you're paying 2 life every time.
2 life. A lot of times you're going to pay 2 life. Right? So this guy costs the same as the last Omnath, the same colors, but it costs you 2 life. And this guy says if you would lose unspent mana...
Right.
Yeah, it becomes black instead. So... No. I say the casting cost is the same.
Oh no, I just meant like it's not. It's not like the last Omnath. We have black this time. He has the 5 colors, right? Or was the last one 5 colors?
Right. No, this guy's 5 colors.
Oh, okay.
But you could cast them for the same colors as the other guy. Just
I see. Yeah. Okay, equivalent. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like kind of like the same thing. It's a 4/4 also. Very different abilities though. First ability is if you lose unspent mana, that mana becomes black instead. And at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card if it has 3 or more colored mana symbols in its casting cost. If you do, you add 3 mana in any combinations of its colors, and you can put it in your hand. If you don't reveal it, you put it in your hand also. So either way, you draw a card during your pre-combat main phase. If you're able to reveal it, you get maybe 3 mana, which is great because it can help color fix or ramp. And then it's you don't lose unspent mana, so you can like keep black hanging around. My original idea for this was to do a tribal Omnath deck.
Oof.
Basically, you go back and you include all the previous iterations of Omnath, because it originally was a mono green commander, then it was green and red, then it was green, red, and blue, and then it was green, red, blue, and white, and now it's all colors.
Oof.
So you could kind of go back and create those, and a lot of them have landfall synergies or big mana synergies. So you could do that. And then, a good ramp payoff that gets added is stuff like Torment of Hellfire or Hailfire,
Yeah.
Exsanguinate, and other X spells. My original thought was, I could do that and not actually run any black mana in my deck. And then all of the black mana has to come from carrying it over from the previous turn.
A fun little hoop to jump
which
through.
is really,
That's a good hoop. Yeah.
So I'm gonna exsanguinate you for like 20, but I have to make sure that I have the black mana floating until my next turn, so it's easier to interact with me and stop me from doing that strategy. The problem with it is it's kind of a one-trick pony, right? You end up building this just like the previous Omnath decks.
Mm-hmm.
You just add those black cards.
Yeah. I feel like it's a little on rails, but it is a very cool deck. Like if I saw that, and like you said, it's tough to play that more than once in a certain group. But like if I saw that at LGS, I'd be like, oh, that's really cool. Like a cool idea, a cool hoop to jump through.
Right. You could also do it as like an elemental deck. I think this is the first 5-color elemental commander. It doesn't have any text that is relevant to elementals other than being an elemental.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a 5-color elemental commander, I think this guy is great for that. The elemental, like, big dudes, the 6-mana ones from Lorwyn, like Vigor and Dread,
Oh, yes.
have 3 colored pips in their cast, so that's kind of cool. You could also do this as a Phyrexian commander, like for a Phyrexian
tribal.
creature type matters. Yeah. So they have spoiled that March of the Machines is going to have at least 2 archetypes in it having to do with tribal. And one of those tribes is Phyrexian. So we talked about this all the way back a couple months ago when we were talking about the white and black commander from Dominaria United. Elias?
Yeah, Alice Core, my girl.
Yeah, that's her. So she's a Phyrexian. And so they've been having lots and lots more Phyrexians. In fact,
a lot of good ones.
A year and a half ago.
A lot of good ones that it's not like it's not going to be a niche tribe anymore. It's going to be like you can fill an entire commander deck with them.
Right.
Yeah.
So they don't have a lot of Phyrexian matters yet. Like the creature type doesn't matter a lot. I mean, obviously you include things like Herald's Horn and Name Phyrexian, or you could do Urza's Incubator and Name Phyrexian, or things like that where Adaptive Automaton, Name Phyrexian. These things can be done for any tribe. You could do that with goats.
Yeah.
But with them saying that the Phyrexian tribe is going to matter in this set, I am hoping we get some tribal lords where all Phyrexians will gain X, or whenever a Phyrexian does something, Y happens.
Yes.
I'm pretty hopeful.
Some weird
but I could
Phyrexian ETB draw a card, stuff that you have in other tribes you're just missing. Yeah.
Right, yeah, just some reason to be running all Phyrexians other than play.
Yeah.
Some reason why it's a cohesive unit. Reasons to play Changelings in your Phyrexian deck. You love Phyrexian.
Not a huge Changeling fan.
Yeah.
Not a huge Changeling. You love these things. You love these things.
Thing built ever.
Oh.
But once again, the problem with me having built and try and build the Phyrexian tribal deck is that we don't have the Phyrexian tribal cards yet for Mon.
That's fair.
I went down a bunch of roads trying to figure out a way to break this guy. I'm going to love this guy, and I probably will build him at some point in paper. I just don't think it would have been very interesting to listen to.
That's fair. Yeah, that's a fair call out. Thank you. I mean, if you think that way, it's probably true. Do you think overall, before we move on from Omnath, do you think he's going to be a popular commander coming out of the set?
Yeah.
People love their Jelly Bean, man.
Right, so Omnath is a very popular one. This mana ability of his is pretty good. You can play, all of the colors have X spells matter. right?
Yeah.
So you could like, if you can keep this guy alive for a couple turns, you end up having an absurd amount of mana to pump into an X spell, which is kind of like Timmy.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of fun. But yeah, so I ended up going with another one of the
team
promos,
ups.
Commander.
Yes.
Yeah, the team up promos. So this is also one that you can get in your commander slot for your pre-release. Once again, at the pre-release, you can get this, but you can't play it in that pre-release deck.
I feel that's going to confuse a lot of people. Honestly, when you told me that, I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
I guess you just say it and people won't do it. I don't know.
Well, that's so they usually announce at the beginning of pre-releases, assuming people are relatively new and haven't done a lot of research on the game or the set or whatever.
Yeah.
They usually disclose to you like common mechanics, common mistakes, or how to play functionally, like what kind of deck to build. So they talk about a lot of that stuff at pre-releases.
I'll push back, Martin. I've gone to several pre-releases, and I don't think I've had one time where at the start of the pre-release they were like, "Don't forget, you can put your promo in your deck." And I always have people.
Really?
I always have people ask me like, "Can I put this one in the package? Can I play with that?" Like, I didn't know that for the longest time. The first two pre-releases I didn't put the thing in my deck.
Did you ever go to one at Mox Boarding House?
No, I didn't make it out there. I'm sure their intros are probably really good.
Yeah, they do a really good job because they get a lot of new players there.
Yeah.
So they do a really good job. But I think most of the places I've been to have done it. But I probably don't notice if they don't.
Just you're already in the zone. You're halfway through building your deck at that point, Martin.
Well, no, they usually get that speech before I can open packs. But yeah, I usually finish before most. But
fair.
So the card I went with is Catilda and Lear. It is a green, a white, and a blue for a legendary creature human. They are both humans, so this is just a human. And it's a 3/3. Whenever you cast a human spell, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So that means you can cast that card from your graveyard for its flashback cost, and then you exile it. So this is a very unique take on tribal humans. Original Catilda is a green and a white for a 1/1 protection from werewolves, because that's really important. And it gives all of your humans the ability to tap for mana of any color that they are. And then you can also tap it in 6 mana to give all your humans +1/+1. So mana generation. And then Lear, which is actually one of my favorite cards from its set, is blue, blue, and 3 colorless. It's a 3/4, and then it says you can play instants and sorceries from your graveyard if you do exile them. So that one you can just do without having to jump through hoops of playing humans, but then you're in mono blue.
Yeah.
So I feel like this one's better because you have more color access.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of really cheap humans
also,
too, so it's not that big of a setback to have to play a human.
Right, yeah. So first off, you can play things like Champion of the Parish, 1 white, 1/1. It gets +1/+1 every time you play a human or a human enters the battlefield, which is pretty potent. Just that one guy is usually pretty good in human decks, but you end up having something you don't normally have in human decks, which is the ability to really abuse instants and sorceries. A lot of human decks are just like they try and build a critical board mass and then attack for lethal. This deck could be a lot more tricksy, which is why I picked it. I really think I'm tempted to build it. This just allows you to turn every human into a Snapcaster Mage. Snapcaster is a colorless and a blue for a 2/1 with flash. Whenever enters the battlefield, you give target instant or sorcery flashback in your graveyard, where flashback is equal to its casting cost. It's literally this card.
Yeah, every time.
This is like, what if we make Snapcaster as a commander, right?
Yeah.
And I love Snapcaster.
It's a good card.
So,
good card.
Yeah. So some of the cards that ways to build this deck, right, is I think obviously you need to have instants and sorceries in your graveyard, but you also need to have lots of humans. So I think you're going to run a lot of your traditional human cards and payoffs.
Yeah.
Like you're going to probably play like Thalia's Lieutenant, which is a white and a colorless for a 1/1. When it ETBs, you put +1/+1 counters on all of your humans. and it gets a +1/+1 counter for each human when it enters the battlefield. So it wants to see cards coming in and out. You're going to probably run Chew Lane, which is you're not probably going to play that to cast a spell from your graveyard, except for maybe swords. But it's Bant colors also plus 2 colorless, and you can, whenever you creature enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card and put a land into play.
It's a broken card. It's really good. Yeah, that's a really good card.
Kind of busted and scary in the command zone, so that's why I wouldn't run it as a commander. But I like the idea of playing it in this deck where it would be a little more fair. Another one of those kind of commonly strong cards that fits well in this deck is Monastery Mentor.
Oh yeah.
White and 2 colorless for a 2/2 with prowess. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, put a 1/1 human into play. Now, 1/1 monk into play. But even if it was a human, you've got to remember that tokens don't trigger this. It's got to be whenever you cast a human spell.
Yes.
So tokens don't work. Flickering doesn't work. But
the prowess. The prowess on the monks too. Like that makes a big difference.
Yeah,
like, that's huge.
It really does. I mean, in 3 mana, it might seem like a lot, but whenever you cast this for 3, you're probably going to be able to flashback something like a Farseek, which is really the play pattern that I see doing with this deck. Is I want to include a pretty decent suite of all of the 2 mana green ramp spells.
Yeah.
Even into the north, finding a snow land, right? Because you want all of the 2 mana ones. You don't want any of the 3 or 4 mana ones. And I think other than Soul Ring and possibly if you want to be sweaty, you could do Mana Crypt. I don't think you run any artifacts
at all.
Because you don't need it, right? You want instants and sorceries and creatures, so you don't want any artifacts in your deck more than you have to. Maybe you include a couple of artifact equipment like Skull Clamp or one of the swords. But I think you really want to focus on those spells. Some of the other payoffs for humans is like Kyler, which is really good, or Heron Blade Elite. These cards both get counters and get bigger and give everybody else power based on humans being played. Also, Rick.
Oh yeah, Rick's a good one. I feel like Kyler is one that is like Kyler will be sneaky good because people do not read Kyler when it gets played.
Yeah, it's also like one of the least exciting commander precons from that era, but not because it's not strong, because it's too linear.
It's very linear, yeah.
Yeah, but you're able to play it in this deck, and you're able to do lots of big things where you are getting these guys bigger and bigger while you're also using your instants and sorceries to control the board. You probably run all of the cheap and or free instants and sorceries. You probably not instants and sorceries, counter spells. You run a lot of your 1 mana removal, like swords and path. Like the enchantment and artifact removal. One of the reasons why I don't want to run as much of that as I can in this deck is because I want to be able to run the sweepers without any kind of negative effect.
Okay.
So, like, you could imagine the green and a colorless instant that destroys all enchantments would be very niche, but very powerful.
Very powerful.
Yeah, so a lot of my draw card in this deck is I've set it up where I'm running things that allow you to draw and discard, because it then feeds your graveyard and you could reuse those spells later. And then that way you're able to play some of these more niche cards, but then you can discard them if they're not relevant.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to worry about running these corner case cards that are absurdly good when they're important and absurdly bad when they're not. And I think that's a win.
Yeah, I'm just
the other thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was saying, I just realized that you're in blue. You're going to have so much. The ability to like stop you is going to become very hard when you try to do your late game activities. Whatever those activities are, if you have a counter spell in your graveyard, you just cast an innocuous human to start, and you give that counter spell flashback. That's right. I just thought about how that plays. That's really cool.
Yeah. So the play pattern, like I said, is going to be early instants and sorceries to ramp, as many as you can get your hands on, right? And then in the mid game, you start developing a board of creatures. While you're doing that, you're flashing back these ramp cards, which is a great play pattern because you're building up a board while you're also continuing to ramp. So instead of like your 4 mana ramps or your 3 mana ramps, you're going to play a 1-drop and pay a 2 mana ramp spell.
Yeah.
You know, turning your Champion of the Parish into a pseudo, like almost like a cultivate, is pretty insane. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention. I'm sorry.
No.
There's so much to talk about this
It's,
set. That's
it's
why
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, this deck is just nuts. Wrath, Weatherlight Stalwart is so good in this deck.
I'm not
It's
familiar.
a
What is
blue. Okay, it's a draft all-star. Blue and a white for a 1/3. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you can tap 2 untapped creatures if you do draw a card. It's a human.
Ooh. Okay.
So, A plus in this deck.
Huh.
It also allows you to pay 5 mana to give all of your creatures +1/+1. So while you're getting all these humans going on and building up your board state, you're also ramping insane amounts in this deck that you'll end up being able, I'm just going to activate that 3 times. Good game,
That's,
right?
yeah.
So he's a finisher, he's a draw card, he's a synergy. I mean, he does everything that you want to do. So good. So that's kind of like the game plan. There's other good cards like Urza's Lord Heart Artificer, makes instant sorceries cheaper and is a human.
Very good.
You've got C8 Stormcaller, which allows you to next instant or sorcery you cast for 2 mana or less, copies it. If you play it with Kicker, it copies it again. So a cheap human that does this trick. Lauren of the Third Path allows you to destroy artifacts, and it's also
Let's go.
human.
Group hug.
Eternal Witness is human.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe you want to be able to cast an instant or sorcery 3 times. Witness gets it back, and then also allows you to cast another.
Yeah.
Archmage Emeritus is also another one of those synergy pieces that I think is important in this deck. Blue, 2 colorless, 2/2 human. So it can cast something, but I don't really want to be worrying about my 4 mana guys casting those sorceries. Maybe you get a Swords or something, but you don't want to be taking up like turn 7 by casting this guy and Far Seeking, right? Like, that's not how the deck wants to play. You want to really have as cheap as possible for those roles, like Esper Sentinel.
Yeah.
Or Sarah's Ascendant.
Ooh.
So good in this deck. Anyway,
That is a really good one.
I'm going too long.
No, that's
apologize.
a really good includes for the deck, and I think you're right. I think now every time I look at the card, I think of a different color. I'm like, oh man, I really hope I don't have to worry about Swords twice, or Cyclonic Rift twice, or Rampant Growth effect 6 times in the game. Like that just
Yeah. So good. And if you get Chulane early, I mean, you could even run like tutors for Chulane.
Yeah.
She's small enough where, she's a legend, so you can get her with the Time of Need sorcery, a green and a colorless. And that could also help you find other key Legendary Matters cards like Rick. Pretty good. But now let's talk about those instants and sorceries.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want to run those Far Seeks and things like that. And cheap interaction, like the cheap counters, 2 mana or less, seems great in this. And then you also want to include some finishers and protection. So for protection, I included Clever Concealment and Heroic Intervention. So we've lauded Clever Concealment already. It's an amazing card. If you don't have it, you need to go get it. And Heroic Intervention's been played in pretty much any green deck that has creatures since the beginning of time. So those two are pretty obvious. The fact that they're both instants means you can hold them up in other people's turns. Savine's Reclamation is particularly good in this deck, as you can cast it and then you can flash it back for its casting cost rather than paying the 5.
Oh, yeah.
And when you pass it in the graveyard, it gets 2 other things, which if it's really late game, you could just basically redo your whole board, because once another human... it goes back into play, so you can't flash back. I apologize.
No, you're good.
And then your finishers are Finale of Devastation, Overwhelming Stampede, and Akroma's Will.
Oof.
So early game, you can loot these away with your draw and discard effects, but late game, they can just close the door. And in fact, it wouldn't be impossible for you to cast an Overwhelming Stampede and flash it back the same turn.
Oh, that seems really good. Yeah, I feel like the... oh, sorry, my dog is crying.
Oh, no worries.
I feel like the ability for this deck to like almost hide cards in its graveyard is really cool, because it's like you don't see that card that he played turn 2 that he didn't have this commander on the battlefield, but now he does, and now it has flashback, and now you're in trouble if he plays low CMC. Plus, like, if you run a lot of protection and counter spells, you also have a lot of humans that protect your board further. So there's just a lot of sweet things you can do there.
Yeah, the thing I like about this deck is that I'm about to cover the important flash guys. because these are the guys I think that actually makes this deck good.
Oh.
I think if you're playing all of the sorcery speed guys, your deck is just very vulnerable. Like Wraths just wreck you. Even some spot removal can be really hard for you. But the flash guys are really strong. Like Containment Priest is a white and a colorless for a 2/2. If a creature would enter play that was not cast, it is exiled instead. Like other than tokens, non-tokens. Which has kind of been like one of those sideboard cards for like legacy decks that are sneak and show or show and tell decks to try and stop them. But it has some playability. It's kind of like a stacks piece. But it definitely minimizes opponents doing chicanery, which may not be amazing, but really you'd play it as a white and one colorless 2/2 flash human, right?
Yeah.
The other is just extra. Snapcaster Mage, of course, is amazing in this because it's 2 mana and it gets you 2 spells in flashback. Very nice. Resolute Reinforcements is a white and a colorless for a 1/1 human. It brings a token with it. The token doesn't get flashback, but the 1/1 does. So I like that for 2 mana.
Nice.
The Niambi Esteemed Speaker is a white and a blue for a 2/1 with flash. You can also tap it to return another creature to your hand, so it allows you to abuse these effects. Ambush Paratrooper is a white and a colorless for a 1/2 flying human. Once again, the flash is most important, but you can dump mana in it late game to get pumps. And then my favorite, Deputy of Acquittals. I think this card has got to be one of the best cards in this whole deck because of the commander, right? It's a blue and a white for a 2/2 human with flash. And when it enters the battlefield, you return another creature to your hand. You don't have to. So if you're just trying to get it on the board to finish the game, you can do that. But it allows you to then pick up like your Containment Priest. So you always have an instant of sorcery up.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's so good. I think this deck is going to be a lot of fun. I don't think it's going to be broken.
No, it seems like it does fair. It does really big plays, but at a speed that seems very fair to me.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are infinite combos with it that I don't know.
Definitely.
Like there's of course infinites in green, white, blue, and of course if you use a lot of fast mana, it could be better. But I'm pretty excited. I'm really excited for all 3 of these: the Goro, Slimefoot and Squee, Catilda and Leer. I think these 3 are some of the best commanders.
They're home runs. Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
They kind of remind me of some of the commanders from New Capenna.
They're going to say Battlefield Baldur's Gate, and we were going to say the same thing. They're a little stronger than the Battlefield Baldur's Gates. What about the New Capenna commanders reminds you of this?
Okay, so
Just 'cause
they're all
3
color.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, you look at them, they all had really cool abilities. Henzi's very unique. It's not something you see all the time. The Naya one, Kit Katano, is a really cool, like, go wide goad. So unique and different.
Oh, Jetmir was in there too, wasn't he? He was really cool.
Yeah, no, Jetmir was...
he's not. Never mind.
From the set. It wasn't from the command. But you also had... I was talking about the precons, is what they remind me of. So those 2, and then you had Maestros, which is the
painter guy. And Hello?
Yeah, and you can...
I think.
Añejo,
Something like that.
You can cast cards from the graveyard too, and then you could.
He had Casualty, yeah. He had the Casualty.
Yeah, Casualty.
That's what it was.
Yeah, Casualty. No, yes, the enchantment lets you cast it from the graveyard. He lets you copy spells from your hand if you act a creature of the right size. I mean, just that's why it gives me a callback. It's like they're all 3 color, but they're all just so unique and well made.
Yeah.
They do things like Sparrow Falco was another one. That was the Bant one that allowed you to remove counters from cards. Oh, that was in the main set, but still. Perry was the one that was in the precon. It allowed you to... he'd get bonuses or give bonuses based on the types of counters you have. So it wasn't how many counters, but like how many different kinds of counters.
The Rhino guy. Yeah.
Yeah. But, so my point is it reminds me of that whole line where they're all like unique and powerful, but not broken.
Yeah. I think they definitely found the line between combining the abilities, where because usually if you have 2 commanders that are fairly popular, their abilities are generally pretty good. So I think if you asked me a month ago or 2 months ago, like, hey, they're going to combine these two commanders, what do you think is going to happen? I'd be like, busted card. The card's going to be busted. But, like, yeah, I think they found a pretty cool sweet spot.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm pretty stoked for this set. I might be more stoked for these extra commander cards than the core set so far, but we've barely seen any cards from the core set. Like, Omnath is really cool. Thalia and the Gitrog is really cool. Drana and Linval is pretty cool. Oh, have you seen the Heliod?
Oh, the new Heliod? I know he transforms, but I haven't seen what he transforms into.
Okay, so let's just talk about these last couple
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we can wrap up. So just the last couple things about this set is some of these spoilers coming out. There's going to be a lot more by the time this hits. You guys are probably listening to this. In our next podcast, we will likely talk about a lot more of these spoilers and how excited we are about the set. But Heliod the Radiant Dawn is a white, and 2 colorless for a 4/4 legendary enchantment creature god. And it says, whenever it enters the battlefield, return target enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand, which is fine. Kind of meh. But for 3 and a Phyrexian blue, you can transform it. So either 3 mana or 3 mana and a blue mana, you can transform it. You can only transform it as a sorcery, which I think they could have done it otherwise and it wouldn't have been too strong. But it's pretty cool. And when it transforms, it becomes a 4/6 Phyrexian god. It's also a legendary enchantment creature. And it says you may cast spells as though they had flash.
Ooh.
Probably be really cool in the last deck we were just talking about, because given all your spells flash means you can cast anything during anybody's turn. And then spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each card your opponents have drawn this turn.
Whoa.
Pretty potent.
That seems really powerful.
It's expensive, but it is powerful, right? Like, so you can imagine giving all your stuff flash. You could do this as I see this as an Eldrazi commander personally.
Yeah, because you're really taking advantage of the cost reduction at that point.
Right. I mean, you could get it all the way down to like 0. And you could also play spells that a lot of people don't normally play, which is each player draws X.
Oh, yeah. Like a false group hug.
Yeah. And you could just make everybody draw, which then makes all your cards cheaper. And next thing you know, you're dropping Eldrazi.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It seems powerful and cool. I mean, you could just stick it into an enchantment deck, as it is an enchantment. And it gives your enchantments flash, which is good. And it gets you back an enchantment. So, yeah, it's fine there.
It's a cool,
but it's not as fun.
Yeah, I feel like people like Heliod generally though. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he transforms.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Yeah, he's cool. I think he's
He's a little sweaty with the Walking Ballista combo. Some people don't love him, but
yeah,
I think he's pretty cool.
And I think the other ones are pretty middling. I think this guy's kind of middling too, but I think he's got a pretty unique play pattern.
Nice.
And also Jin Cataxius is back.
Ew.
Do you know this one yet?
No, but I'm sure it's gross.
Blue, and 3 colorless for a 5/5 legendary Phyrexian Praetor. It's got Ward 2, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, you draw a card. Okay. It's fine.
Okay.
4 mana, 3 and a blue. You exile it, and then you return it to the battlefield transformed. You can only activate it as a sorcery, and only if you have 7 or more cards in hand. It's kind of hard to activate.
Okay.
But not impossible, since this in itself is a draw card spell.
Yeah.
And it's not 7 exact, it's 7 or more, so this is fine. The other side is one of your favorite kinds of cards, Saga.
Hey, let's go.
Yeah, it's called the Great Synthesis on the back. And it says, it's first lore counter, draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand. You have no maximum hand size for as long as you control the Great Synthesis. So, you had 7 or more when you flipped it, so this is going to draw you
7 or more.
7.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So good. And then the 2 is return all non-Phyrexian creatures to their owner's hands. So you then bounce everybody else's stuff.
There's your freaking board wiping Phyrexian tribal right there. Gosh, dang, that's strong.
So good. And then the third one is you may cast any number of spells from your hand without paying their mana cost.
Omniscience? It's just the third. What the heck?
Omniscience for the turn, and then you exile it and return it to the battlefield.
Oh, it comes.
So
it
goes
comes back.
back as Jin-Gitaxias.
Oh, dude, that is. Ugh. Why does it have ward on
mean-
it? It does not need ward on there. That seems
I mean,
insulting.
admittedly, it's 9 mana to cast this and flip it.
Oh,
It's kind of insane. But with the ward, you could realistically cast this for 5 and flip it later.
yeah.
I see this being probably better in the 99 than in the command zone, because being mono blue makes it, I think, a lot worse.
Yeah.
But being a repeated blink, like a repeated evacuation from the command zone, seems pretty nuts.
Yeah. That's what I expected. You say Jin-Gitaxias. I don't think fun, reasonable abilities. I think broken. I'm not gonna have a good time when this hits the board, or just threat, immediate threat when I hear that name.
Yeah,
Ugh, that is rough.
so good. Okay, you want to hear about a busted planeswalker?
Yes, I do.
I've got 2 of them here.
Heck yes. Can either one be your commander?
Chandra. Neither of them can be your commander.
Dang it. I want them to make more of
But
those.
Oathbreaker, I guess, is now a supported format, so maybe in the future. So Chandra Hope's Beacon is a red and 4 colorless for a 5/5 planeswalker, legendary planeswalker Chandra. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. It only triggers once each turn.
Oh, okay.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Its +2 ability is add 2 mana in any combination of colors. So you could cast this and get 2 mana back. So functionally, this costs you 4 mana, which I think is the part that a lot of people are going to miss when they see this card and they start trying to evaluate it, because 6 mana is a
It
lot.
seems really high, yeah.
Yeah, it's really high. But the fact that it's actually functionally 4 and it's mana fixing
Yeah.
seems so
It's worth
good.
something.
I mean, you could imagine, like, I imagine in Constructed, this card's going to be a lot better than people think because of this. But you can play it, you can tick up it, and immediately play a removal spell and copy it. Right?
Seems pretty good. Seems pretty
Yeah.
good just off the bat. Like the
Yeah, +2
the
also
floors.
huge tick ups. They'll have 7.
Wow.
They'll have 7 loyalty right out the gates with a +2. No minus on this. No, it's +1. So another plus ability. Exile the top 5 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may cast an instant or sorcery cards from among those exiled.
Wow. So I feel like they probably were like, "Hey, we're not going to put an ultimate on it, and it'll be fair," and they just screwed up, and everything's too
Well,
strong.
there is a minus.
Oh.
Ultimate is there, but usually it's a plus, a minus, and an ultimate. This is a plus, and an ultimate.
Oh.
So its ultimate is -X, and it deals X damage to each of up to 2 targets.
Oh.
So you could see this coming down for 6 mana and immediately killing 2 threats and still being around.
Yeah.
I think this is probably going to be better in Constructed than it is in Commander, but I could see this definitely going into a Spellslinger deck.
Yeah. I mean, even just
Yeah.
copying one thing,
Yeah.
that's not terrible.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like the floor's pretty high on that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Probably at its best in like a Planeswalker style deck where you're already playing lots of spells to keep people from being able to attack your Planeswalkers and protecting them.
Sure.
But I don't know. The card is powerful.
Yeah.
The last one is Ren and the Realm Breaker,
Ooh.
which is a colorless and a green for a legendary Planeswalker Ren. It's got 4 loyalty starting for 3 mana, which is pretty good. It's +1 up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature with vigilance, hexproof, and haste until your next turn. It's still a land.
Wow.
Oh, it's got a static ability I forgot to mention. Lands you control tap for a mana of any color. So it's got the Chromatic Lantern ability.
Dude, that is so strong.
Yeah,
On a
pretty
30 mana planeswalker? What?
yeah. -2, mill 3 cards. You may put a permanent card from among those milled into your hand, which is pretty nice. I mean, you kind of want to know what's on top of your deck, but
Yeah.
it's immediate value, which is important in Commander.
Yeah.
Because you don't want... I mean, it's also not very threatening, so people may not kill it. It does produce a vigilance token, so potentially it can protect itself, but not very likely.
Yeah.
But the real big one on this, and the reason why I think it'll see play in Commander, is it's -7. You get an emblem, and you may play lands and permanent spells from your graveyard for the rest of the game.
Wow. That's a really good emblem.
It's a very, very strong emblem, and it is able to ultimate the turn it comes into play if you have either Vorinclex or
the Doubling Season. Yeah.
And those are both like 5 or 6 mana, and this is 3, but in green, I could see casting them both on turn 6.
Oof, wow. Yeah.
Right?
I feel like if you
So absurd.
Yeah, I feel like that's the Lurish. I have the Lurish companion deck, and it's like not even that good. Where it has to be on the battlefield. You can't play lands. It's like half that good in its companion.
Right?
Oof.
It can be killed.
Is 3 mana? Are there any like other? Is 3 mana planeswalkers? Is that common?
No.
I was just like,
No,
I don't play a lot of
uncommon,
planeswalkers. That seems really cheap. And it fixes your mana. It does too much stuff.
Especially for having 5 loyalty the turn it comes into play. So other 3 mana planeswalkers are like Liana of the Veil. Has seen a lot of competitive play.
Oh, okay.
Teferi, the
yeah.
blue, white, and a colorless. First Renin 6 is a red and a green. It's just 2 mana. Comes into play.
Another Ren.
Very, very good in Modern.
That's crazy.
I'm trying to think of other 3 mana planeswalkers. There's been some that don't make it.
It's just like I feel like
I feel like this card's good enough that it's going to see play in Commander, just if nothing else in like those planeswalker combo decks with the
Super Friend
doubling
decks or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a Super Friends deck is good because if you got a 5-color Super Friends deck, that lands you control tap for 1 mana of any color is very relevant.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't want to rely on that as a way of fixing my mana, but it's a nice bonus.
Yeah. I don't know.
But that's it. That's what we know of the set right now. Not a lot, but it's enough to be excited about.
Definitely enough to be excited about. I think there's definitely some cards in here that you're reading. I'm like, oof, that sounds like it's going to be an expensive card in a few months.
Well, I think Ren and the Realm Breaker is going to come down to whether or not it sees play in like Modern or Pioneer.
Oh, like other formats,
If it sees play in those, it's going to be an expensive card. It'll be like $50. It'll probably be the most expensive card in the set. We didn't talk about Archangel Elspeth, which is another Planeswalker. It's just not very good. We can talk about it more another time maybe, but it's just kind of nothing. I like Chandra, but once again, it's a 6 mana one, so even if it sees play in 60 card formats, it's likely like a 2 of. So I don't think that'll be super expensive. Jin-Gitaxias is not going to see any standard play, I don't think.
Slow,
so it's going to be a commander only card, which most likely means it'll be like $5. Same thing with Heliod. And Omnath is a buy a box promo, so that probably won't be too much either. And it's only a rare; it's not even a mythic. So
pretty reasonable.
Yeah. I am really curious. This is the first time with these commander promos. Really interested to see what they do. If it's just these 3, so you're always going to get one of these 3, they may not be too bad. But this is supposedly the only way you can get these. If they're not in any packs, and there's like 10 of these,
and we're not certain
they're going to be
that they're not only including these cards. Like we don't know that for sure. Like it could be others as well.
What I've read made it seem like this is the only way to get these cards.
Okay.
But
you never
if
know.
that's a problem for supply, they're going to end up being put in a list or get reprinted somewhere, like they did with, like they're doing with these Universes Beyond cards.
Yeah.
If it's a availability issue, they will eventually reprint them. If they end up being like $50, Wizards is going to be ecstatic because then they can include them as a mythic, as a chase rare, or chase mythic in some set in the future, right? Like they want scarcity to be a way for cards to be expensive. So it makes sense. I recommend, doing your pre-release, trying to get these cards in the pre-release packages, have a lot of fun.
Go to pre-release. That is a good idea.
Yeah, go to pre-release. The pre-cons look like they're going to be fun. They haven't come out with any of the cards yet, but they look like some cool stuff. They're going to include the Commander Plane Chase cards. If you haven't played with Plane Chase before, it's like a a whole nother deck that sits in the middle of the table, and you can flip locations, which will impact the whole game, and then it can have effects to flip the next one, which will have other different effects to impact the game. So lots of just a new way to play. It's been a long time since they printed Plane Chase cards, so some of them have gotten kind of rare and expensive. But there are going to be a lot of reprints in this, so I imagine that they'll be affordable. Like, I think you get a few in every single one of the Commander decks.
Nice, that's really cool. A format I've never played, and I look forward to trying it out.
I haven't played it either. I think I might have played it on Moto if they had that at one point. It seems like I remember doing that, but...
It sounds like fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
All right, man. I think that's it for this week.
Yeah.
I had one small thing for MTG Finance Corner,
Yeah.
if I can remember it. There has been a lot of spiking lately on cute Secret Lair cards. It's just kind of weird because some of them have gone like absurdly high, like the Kodama's Reach. That was really cute. It had like a cat on it. Got up to multiple hundreds of dollars.
Wow.
Which I don't think it was selling a lot for that. I think some of that was a little bit
little
of market
inflated,
manipulation.
yeah.
Yeah, but like, so one of the things we've talked about before with the Secret Lairs is that $30. You look at the print value of the original cards, and it's like $5. Not really a lot of value there. But if you go back now and look at some of those where we were complaining about them not being overall very good value, they're now worth way more than they cost because not many people bought them and people tried to buy the singles instead.
Oh.
So, like, for example, Frazzetti. Remember that one? Frank Frazetta? Frazetta.
Oh yeah, the
Midnight Reaper?
yes, Midnight Reaper in the Dark Ritual.
Dark
Yeah,
Ritual,
yeah.
The Dark Ritual is like, I think it's like $20 now.
Wow. Yeah, that one had some sweet art. I actually ended up getting that one because we talked about it. And I was like, I do like that art.
It's $33 cheapest listing for that.
Holy cow!
$33, and they're selling. Some of them sold for $38. That's probably the foil.
Wow.
There's only 11 of them right now on TCG.
That's crazy.
There's 9 foils and 11 regular. I mean, there's multiples on some of those, like 4 or 5 and stuff, but it's nuts. Like, so I say if you see a Secret Lair art and you're like, I like that art, and that's a card I like to play with.
Yeah.
Even if the original card, like Dark Ritual, is like $1, it's going to be worth picking up. Because if it's playable, people are going to like those fun, quirky arts. So it's worth doing if you like Secret Lairs. So I just something to think about.
That's a good call out. I think, like you said, if you like it too, the worst case scenario, just play with the card. You got a sweet looking card.
I mean, yeah, you're gonna play with
Yeah.
it, but it's a lot of these are just way more than I thought they were gonna be. So, it's a good thing to do. I think what happens is your Ulamog Secret Lair,
The cereal
like, your
box
Ulamog's
one.
the same
It's
price.
so cool.
Yeah. It's so cool, but it's like the same price because everybody saw Ulamog and they're like, I'm going to buy Ulamog because Ulamog's an expensive card.
Yeah.
But a lot of people were like, yeah, I'm not going to buy that Secret Lair or I'm not going to buy as many. So then once people start trying to pick up their singles for blinging out their legacy decks or blinging out their CEDH decks, there's not enough copies to go around. So then the price goes up because you can no longer get this card.
Yeah, it's like a demand thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Interesting.
So I will be looking more closely at Secret Lairs that don't have high value in them, but they have playable cards that look really cool.
Yeah.
Because I think that's going to be a going on thing here where they are not purchased to the extent as some of the more high value Secret Lairs. And so those cards are harder to come by, and then the demand for cool bling versions just drives it through the roof.
I could definitely see that, yeah.
Alright guys, that wraps it up for this week. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Cooking with Cardboard. Please feel free to reach us on Twitter. You can contact me at cardboard_cooks, and you can find Martin at golem_mtg. Have a great rest of your day.